Hassan, thank you so much. That's very helpful. Amber Hassan Etarajan, who's in the Sri Lankan capital for us this morning, our South Asia editor. Novak Djokovic faces Nick Kyrgios in the Wimbledon men's singles final later today. The mercurial Kyrgios, the bad boy of tennis, versus the meditative Djokovic, who's been clearing his mind and focusing on his breathing with the help of meditation teachers. Since he's a regular visitor to the Buddha temple in Wimbledon, I turn to the temple's senior monk, the meditation master, Pia Basu, for a few tips.
He normally came to meditate when only he comes to the UK for the Wimbledon tennis tournament.
To what extent do you think his meditation has been helpful in his tennis career?
Because meditation is dealing with the mind, meditation can help build up concentration, meditation can help with a better focus. So this means that when you do any kind of sport, meditation can keep you focused on whatever you're doing at that moment. From what Novak Djokovic said in an interview, and he said that with meditation, it helps him keep focus on games to games rather than planning ahead. And because if you think too much about the future, and then you may be anxious, you may be too worried about what is going to happen, and you may think that, okay, I might lose.
Is meditation then something that's actually better to do alone rather than with other people in a group?
If you are new, I would recommend you to do with the other meditators. You know why? Because if you practice under the guidance of the teachers, or if you practice in a group, and then you will feel supported and you will feel inspired by other meditators. I thought in case of Novak Djokovic, he might have learned how to meditate from somewhere else, and then he knows the benefits of meditation, and then he just comes to use our place because he never actually attends the class provided by the temple.
Is there a specifically Buddhist kind of meditation? Because obviously different people in different faiths or no faith at all can engage in meditation, clearing their mind, focusing on their breathing.
Well, it's not necessary to be a Buddhist in order to meditate. Meditation does not belong to any particular religion. It's just a technique to exercise the mind.
Novak Djokovic is of course an Orthodox Christian and has benefited greatly from his relationship with your temple. Is your temple open to everyone of any faith or none?
Well, the temple is open to the public. You don't need to be a Buddhist, and we have lots of school visits. We have lots of the faith people who come to explore Buddhism, or who just would like to visit the main temple to look at the mural paintings. So this means that there is no restriction about religion.
How quickly could I learn how to meditate?
Perhaps you can begin by sitting still. You can take a moment just for 5 minutes, close your eyes, and then breathe in, breathe out. And you can apply counting for those who have a lot of distraction or who have a lot of anxiety, running thoughts in your head. It's better to count. When you breathe in and breathe out, you may count 1. Breathe in, breathe out, you may count 2, and keep counting. And after you have gained some level of concentration, and then you just sit down and meditate on your breathing. So this is the shortcut for those who haven't done any form of meditation before.
And does it change you as a person?
Well, of course, it changes you as a person, because meditation is dealing directly with the mind. And from the Buddhist point of view, mind is the source of happiness and unhappiness. War and peace originates in the human mind, and if we want to aid peace, like the world peace, we need to look within our mind first. And if our mind is well trained, it can be the source of happiness. It can be the seed of peace.
And if I get this right, if I do well with my meditation, what are my chances of winning at Wimbledon?
The meditation doesn't guarantee that you will win the Wimbledon tennis. As you notice that sometimes Djokovic lost temper, but within a minute, and he could regain his emotion back, and then he started the press again. Well, it's normal to be angry when you don't get something you want, but within a minute, and if you have done meditation before, you will be able to keep your emotion in control. Let the anger die down in your heart. And then eventually you will say, oh, the anger is impermanent. It does not last forever. It comes and goes like the other emotion.
See you, Buddhist monk. Pia Paso from the Wimbledon Temple. Alas, getting me to sit still proved to be an impossible challenge even for a meditation master. Digital and cyber warfare are unprecedented challenges to every nation's defence and security these days, and digital technology has also been weaponized to attack religious freedom and to persecute religious minorities. But a new report from Open Doors UK says that threat remains largely ignored by governments and tech companies. The report is titled Digital Persecution, the New Frontier for Religion, Freedom of Religion or Belief, and we're joined by Michael Bosch from Open Doors UK. Michael, good morning.
Good morning.
So your report highlights three key strands of digital persecution, to use that phrase: surveillance, censorship and disinformation. Could you just summarise that briefly? What is involved in those three strands?
So surveillance is the monitoring in which people are monitored, especially when it comes to the use of device listening and spyware, monitoring of social networks, monitoring of online activity. So surveillance is based on the monitoring. Censorship is the active deeds by governments to, for example, block websites, punish certain users of particular websites, cancel certain activities, online activities, but can also go as far as freezing financial assets. And disinformation is targeted fake news, so it's use of digital, so it's digital means to spread fake news about religious minorities.
We sometimes hear that last example of disinformation involved in the hybrid warfare, even in Ukraine, and the use of hybrid warfare by Russia these days. Can we drill down a little bit more into digital surveillance? How widespread is this? Which countries are most engaged in that kind of response to religious minorities?
So the key country here is China, because China is far most advanced in developing technologies to suppress religious minorities, in particular the Uyghurs in Xinjiang province. And for us, when it comes to Christians in China, which have to deal with the same state, although not yet as oppressed as the Uyghurs. But the example of the Uyghurs, and especially how China is developing technology to suppress them, technology involving voice recognition, technology involving facial recognition, and then with facial recognition going even further with emotional recognition, and even ethnic-specific recognition, where cameras are able to determine on basis of facial recognition if people belong to certain people groups, which is actively used in China to distinguish Uyghurs from other people.
And when you say emotional recognition, how does that work?
So emotional recognition looks at muscular changes in the face, but also body temperature, micro-expressions, in order to determine someone's emotional state. A recent police report from Xinjiang province showed that people are tied to so-called tiger chairs, and then the cameras are used to see if they, it's a kind of lying detector, but then very much advanced.
So the tech is there. It's extraordinary. It sounds like science fiction, but it is there, and it's being used by some of these political powers across the world. If you're right in this report that this threat, particularly digital surveillance, is being ignored by most governments and most tech companies, how do you explain that?
So it means that there's not enough awareness, and we see that people are still, and companies are still dealing with China as if nothing is happening there, and as if it's not a real threat.
But is that a lack of awareness by those tech companies, or a desire to make more money and look away?
I hope it's not I hope it's the first one, that it's just an ignorance. But I think I'm afraid it's the latter. Especially when, for example, look at the example of China again, where you have that the Bible app has been banned, and also the Quran app has been banned from the Google Play Store as well as the Google App Store. And then Google and Apple simply complied with Chinese law and did it not. apparently not asked the question, should we actually do that? So that's one of the recommendations also in the report, that companies have to stand up for human rights and also their freedom of religion and belief.
And just finally, Michael, if this is a global issue, and it surely is it being addressed at the global level? And how can it be addressed at the global level?
So, we are, as an organization, but we also see it in other reports, are raising awareness. And we see that there's increasing awareness. Also, a recent tech report by the UK Foreign Committee on Tech. So that there is it's increasing awareness of what's happening, but I think we really need to highlight this. Also because it has a chilling effect on people, knowing that those technologies are being developed, knowing that those technologies are being sold to other countries.
Right.
And the biggest threat here is also the self-censorship, and that censorship will increase and self-censorship will increase,
Michael?
Which will limit religious freedom.
Thank you very much. Really important story. Thank you very much for talking with us this morning. Michael Bosch from Open Doors UK.
Thank you very much.
It's 27 minutes to 8. Still to come this morning, morality in public life.
In politics, no one is remotely indispensable. And our brilliant and Darwinian system will produce another leader equally committed to taking this country forward through tough times.
If we are going through an integrity crisis in our politics, how did it get so bad, and how do we find our way out of it? If you have any ideas, we're on Twitter at BBC R4 Sunday. First, though, how do we break the cycle of serious youth violence? Last year in England and Wales, more than 3,000 offences were committed involving knives and other dangerous weapons, committed by young people between the ages of 10 and 17, and that is just one type of violent behaviour. Over the next week, a number of separate events will be taking place involving church leaders, youth work agencies, practitioners and young people themselves, to highlight the work that's already going on and to reflect on possible new solutions. Kaiser Hassan Sharif is with us, who, when he was a youngster, was one of those who got involved in violence until he began to turn his life around from the age of 22. He now works with the Birmingham Youth Sports Academy and will be taking part in the Faith Alliance Summit at Coventry Cathedral next Wednesday. Also, the Reverend Les Isaac, founder of the Street Pastors Initiative, president of Ascension Trust. They'll be taking part in the Standing Together initiative taking place in London next weekend. Good morning. Welcome to both of you. Good to have you with us. Hazar, can I come to you first? Tell us a little bit about how you got involved in this kind of violent lifestyle, if that's the correct term for it, and how you got out of it.
Oh, yeah. So I grew up in an area called Small Heath in Birmingham, and sort of the violent culture was just a normal thing. The area was surrounded by violence. It was the sort of seen thing to do, and if you weren't sort of involved in that lifestyle, you were essentially a victim, growing up in school. So it's either be the victim or be the perpetrator, and I chose the perpetrator. It's only when I got into BYSA I decided to change my ways, grow up, and I realised things that were normalised weren't actually normal. And working with the young people there, it gave me a purpose, and through that purpose and sort of religious guidance and guidance from the people around me, I sort of changed my ways.
Les, is that what it really comes down to when we're trying to do interventions, trying to make sense of how young people and kids get involved in this kind of violent lifestyle? Purpose, a sense of place, a sense of connectedness.
Right, because a lot of young people are finding themselves under enormous pressure. There is a crisis in terms of families. More families are working longer and harder, and so they're sort of, prioritizing time with children. Children are feeling a sense of a want to belong. There's this push-pull within local communities and society, particularly among young people. And so what we find is a perfect vacuum that's being committed, whereby young people feel, let me explore that. And sadly, it could have devastating consequences.
Well, in what ways do you think faith groups, churches, for example, are making a difference, offering some kind of opportunities to find that purpose, to find that sense of connectedness, and to begin a new kind of relationship with the rest of society?
One of the things I remind people of that churches, congregations are there. They've been there, some of them, for over 100 years. So they would know grandma, great-grandma. They would know mum and dad. They would know the children. They would know the schools. And what we're doing in Synergy, we've come together. So you've got the Southern Diocese, London City Mission, Churches Together, Britain and Ireland, and Ascension Trust. And we've said to ourselves, let's have this partnership so that we could help people to have clarity in terms of what can they do, who's out there doing it, and ensure that there is a collaboration and a synergy together, people complementing each other to ensure they're reaching young people and providing a service for them.
Because in your case, you did not get involved in drug taking or drug dealing, that's uncommon in a sense, because it's more common that people will get involved in some kind of aspects of the drug economy out there. What stopped you?
That was the religious beliefs, I think. I didn't lose myself completely on the religious side. Growing up, I was very religious, and then I went off the rails a bit. But that sort of notion of not earning dirty money, that boundary I kept. Luckily, and I'm really appreciative of it. I could have gone into it. It was really easy access. Could have got involved, but that sort of kept me away from it. And I think if I did get into that, there probably would have been no coming back. But that barrier was always there.
And yet, you did get involved in the violence around you. How did you make that in your own mind? How did you find a way to make that seem acceptable to your Muslim faith?
I think I disconnected it, because in the area it was so normal, and everybody I grew up with was Muslim. It was just so normalized. It was only growing up now that when I stopped being involved, or I stopped seeing it as normal, and then telling the kids not to do it as well, I realized actually that's completely against my faith. Why have we normalized certain things, and then we shun others, but we've normalized so much, and then I realized that there's not just the violent aspect, but the environment, like the whole environment, the way we speak to each other, the way characters, the way people act, and I think a lot of behavior is normalized that's outside of the religion, and it's against the religion, but because it's accepted, we just go along with it.
So there's that disconnect in people's lives sometimes. Les, when we look at what the government's been doing and government agencies have been doing, do you think they've got the right strategy?
Well, I think part of it is that the government thinks short term. And I've been saying for years that governments needs to be consistent and have a long-term strategy rather than, having a 4-year plan and strategy and that's it. So I don't believe that the government's really doing the right thing. And second, I think we need to see more empowering of grassroots activities. So, in Synergy, we've met pensioners who are using their pension money to help support youth work. We've seen young people who have come out of that lifestyle and they have got their friends together to do something. Now, what we need is, structure. We need resources. We need people who have been in it long to help people who are coming in, so that together we could do something that's really touching the heart of the community.
Thank you very much, Reverend Les Isaac, and thanks also to Hassan Sharif. The Home Office have said to us that their approach will be to combine tough enforcement with violence reduction units and multi-agency approaches to try to divert young people away from crime. So that's their summary of the continuing strategy. Our thanks to both our guests there this morning. Yesterday was the first day of the Islamic festival of Eid al-Adha, which harks back to the ancient story of Abraham sacrificing a lamb in place of his firstborn son. In this Eid celebration, animals are slaughtered as an offering, and their meat, the Qurbani food, as it's called, is distributed to families and those in need throughout the community. And there is a lot of need. 50% of Muslim households in the UK are living in poverty. That compares with 18% in the general population. I went to Didsbury Mosque to find out how Qurbani offerings are making a difference in that area, and to meet Tracy Pook, who's involved in distributing Qurbani meats to community food banks, and Attar Ayub, who set up the local Share My Qurbani project. So Qurbani is sacrifice, and it's actually the Arabic is udhiya, and the purpose of doing that is what they say is qurb, to get closer to Allah, to God. So Qurbani is literally just that, sort of attaining closeness to Allah through sacrifice. And when you bring the lamb, for example, it doesn't have to be lamb, but usually lamb, isn't it? For slaughter, it's divided into three.